You are listening to the Mobile, Alabama Business Podcast with Marcus Netto, created by Bluefish.
My name is Blake Martin, and I own the Connexus Clinic and DexaFit Fairhope.
Awesome. Well, it is amazing to have you on the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today. So appreciate you joining us.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, and I guess I'll go into that. So I know a little bit about what you all do and the mindset with which you're approaching helping people. And I guess that's a fair way of describing what it is that, because it's not necessarily the tactics that you're using. It's kind of like that you're shedding a light on the fact that people don't necessarily have to live a life that they feel like they have to live, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording that, I myself have gone through, quite a number of changes over the course of the last 5 or 6 years as far as my health goes. I've always been very conscious, and I'll give a brief, overview for those of you that have not been listening for the last couple of years. But, I found myself in my late or mid 40s, 245, 250 pounds. I was working out 6 days a week, very hard with a couple of guys that, knew what we were doing. I was eating all the right things. I was taking the right supplements, but there was just something not quite right. And that I started testosterone replacement therapy. And when I did that and changed some things about how I eat, so I'm eating a lot less now than what I was, just because I found that my metabolism wasn't as high as what I needed to be. And the testosterone has also increased my metabolism. I'm at 190 now. So I shed over 50 pounds, and it was like, it's easy. Like now I have a hard time keeping weight on.
That's awesome.
So
a lot of people are going to be mad hearing that.
It was extremely important for me to have you on, because here we are at the new year. And I know that everybody's focused on this. Oh, it's the new year. I've got to get healthy. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this. And I will be the first person to say, yes, do all of those things, because it is absolutely, it's the right thing to do, especially for business owners. You have to get that negative energy out some way, right? Yeah. And so, but I wanted to have you on because I think that you guys in your clinic are offering some therapies that, I want people to know about. I think, and it's not, I don't know, I'm not a patient of yours, but I think it's just the modalities that you guys are using, I think are things that are outside of the norm and, interesting. So there's my spiel. So why don't you tell people what Connexus and, what you all are doing over there on the Eastern Shore?
Yeah. So Connexus Clinic, my partner, Dr. William Terry, he's a local urologist here. We started this. We opened in June of 22.
Okay.
Started getting the idea of it.
Great timing, by the way.
Early in that year. So,
yeah.
Both him and I kind of had similar stories. Both the same age. We were 40 at the time. Athletes growing up. I went to St. Paul's. He went to UMS. We knew of each other in high school, but didn't really know each other. I spent 15 years before I started this in medical device sales. So I got to know William very well through that. And we've got a lot of personal similarities and things that we do outside of work that were the same. But naturally, we started talking about fitness and nutrition and found a lot of common ground on that. And both of us realized that kind of all throughout our 30s went through the same thing. And we're both former athletes. We're still working out, but raising young kids, working like crazy, and just didn't feel good. And I know I was frustrated myself because I felt like I was eating pretty good and I was exercising. And I was like, why do I feel like crap a lot of the times?
Yeah.
And it would be naive to say that having infants and toddlers in your house for a while doesn't play into that.
Oh, it definitely plays into it.
It does, for sure. But there was a lot more to it than that. And it really was just kind of this realization that there's a better way out there. You don't just have to kind of skate through life and accept feeling like crap all the time.
Right.
So how do you not? And it's pretty simple place to start, but that's where we both kind of started with this. And our original idea for Connexus was to actually be a very niche men's health clinic. And one of the things that we realized, because William spends his 90% of his time doing that,
Right.
is the first step that a lot of men need to take in order to get into a better place of health is to lose weight.
For sure.
So start going down this weight loss road. Well, we're a new business. I was a corporate guy forever, always wanted to get out, but never had the guts, whatever, to do it. So I don't know what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, we start doing weight loss stuff, and we've got more women than men as
Yeah.
customers. And we're like, okay. So as our young businesses progressed, we don't even do the men's health stuff really anymore.
Really?
And we're almost entirely weight loss, but it's the way we do it is different than a
Okay.
lot of places.
Right.
So a lot of stuff we do has been influenced by, there's a doctor named Peter Attia. A lot of people know who he is.
Right.
He is a phenomenal communicator of taking like complex
Scientific body
medical
functions.
data.
And,
Yeah. And making it digestible for more normal people.
Right.
Now, half the stuff he says still, like when he starts talking about, gets into hormones and stuff, like it
Yeah.
goes over my head quick. But he talks about this idea of health span.
Okay.
So lifespan is just how long you're alive.
Okay.
Health span is the idea of how long you're alive and feeling good and
That's interesting.
having
I've
a
not
high
heard him say
quality of
that.
life. And that is not what our whole medical system is set up to do. Like it's
Shocker.
how many pills
Yeah.
can we give you to
Yeah.
keep you alive longer? And you just look around and see how many people when they get into their 70s are on, I mean, they spend half their money on
Yeah.
prescriptions,
A handful
you
of
know, and
pills.
every time they travel, they got to make sure they've got their pill box with all, and every pill solves one little problem. And most of the time creates like 3 more that you have to take a pill for to get rid of that symptom
Yeah.
that has another side effect. So you take a pill to get, and it's just this revolving door. And, you know, there's always medical problems that come out of left field, whether it be some genetic thing. So this doesn't speak to everybody
Right.
that has a health issue. And it's not a knock on anyone, but we've all grown up ingrained in the system that is really just set up to manage being sick. And it's not set up to help people be healthy.
Well, that, and I'd also argue that we grew up with a system that passed things on as fact, and they really still don't know everything and how it impacts, the body and what function it plays,
Yeah.
and at an easy to understand level. Like
Mhm.
guys like Peter Attia, what's the other guy? Starts with an H. I can't remember his name off the top.
Andrew Huberman.
Huberman, that's
Yeah.
right. Huberman is another one. Like those guys, they understand at a cellular level what the mitochondria is
Right.
going to do and what this mineral is going to do for the mitochondria and how it functions and all that stuff. And I was listening to something recently, and they were like, "Oh yeah, if you just take this, whatever it was I think it was an amino acid, or maybe it was some other thing that we already naturally, create in our bodies." And they were like, "Yeah, if you just take this, it solves this other problem." And I was like, well, why aren't we doing more of that?
Right.
So, but
Because there's not as much money in it.
well, there's not much money in it, and it's also it requires more thought. I
Yeah.
think it's much easier just to say, "Oh, you have high blood pressure. Oh, well, here's a pill," and then you end up spending the rest of your life every 30 minutes running to the bathroom because you have to pee all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so but instead, if you could just like, hey, okay, assuming that you don't need to lose 100 pounds and you have high blood pressure, like, oh, if you take this supplement or this mineral, or if you just eat this little bit, or you're deficient in this, like it solves that problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we don't worry about those things.
No, and part of that too is with the medical system. This is getting off into a whole nother thing, but with health insurance is such a
You've listened to this podcast before.
such a
this
mess
is
and a racket.
Yeah.
That so much of our care is just predicated on what insurance will pay for.
True. Very, very
Insurance doesn't pay for any of this preventative stuff.
true. Yeah.
And a lot of the preventative stuff they pay for is pure crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because it doesn't cost them any money. They don't pay for the actual preventative things. I mean, if everybody was, and we don't do this, so I'm not,
Yeah.
but if everybody was getting a vitamin IV once a month,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be as sick. Like it's pretty dang simple.
Yeah, I 100%
Like,
agree with that.
and it's just little things
Yeah.
like that. Now,
Because most people walk around in a constant state of dehydration, and most
Yeah.
people are deficient in at least a mineral or vitamin or something, and it is causing them either to brain fog, it's causing them to not, have the metabolism that they could, it's causing them maybe they're not able to have kids, they're infertile, or I
Yeah.
mean, there's all kinds of things that are caused by you're missing one little thing.
mhm.
And we don't really approach the human body in a way, we just, when we go to a doctor, it's like, hey, I've got this problem. And it's like, okay, here. And the problem goes away, but the underlying,
Yeah.
it causes a bunch of other issues. So, and now I'm talking because I'm passionate about the subject and I should be interviewing you.
No,
So
no,
I'm going
this
to
is
shut up
great.
now. But yeah. I don't even know where we were. You were talking about how you guys got started and that you guys are more of a doing more of the weight loss side of things now than the men's health.
Yeah. So
side of things.
if you think about it, at our core, we want people to live longer,
Right.
have better lives as
Right.
far as quality of life is concerned. And then particularly when you think about a business owner, or not just a business owner, but anybody who has spent 30, 40, 50 years working their butt off just to get to the end of their life and not physically be able to
To enjoy
enjoy
any of
what
it?
they've I mean, I cannot tell you, I would never say any names,
Yeah.
but I can think of 3 off the top of my head, unbelievably successful men
Mhm.
that have come to us for weight loss,
Yeah.
that are all in their early 60s, have built massive businesses. They've got every toy imaginable in the world, all things that they earned
Yeah.
and worked they worked so hard for it that they just for 30 years totally neglected their health. And
Yeah.
now they walk in and they can't get off the couch hardly because their knees hurt so bad. And of course, their bellies are
Yeah.
sticking way out. And
But we eat
it's
all
like,
of the stuff that's on our plate, and the kids in Africa aren't starving, anymore, right?
well, it's not just eating everything that's on your, I mean, if our plates were full of vegetables and
Yeah, good point.
like
And if our
healthy
plates
stuff,
weren't this big,
it
if
would
they
be
were this big,
fine.
huh,
But our food supply is really set up for us to fail, which that could be
yeah.
a whole podcast on
Well,
its own
I mean,
anyway. So
look. The podcast in the past has been a lot about the individual, and I'm about that. We're going to talk about that, but at the same time, like I think there's it's important to not ignore some of the messages that need to be said, and
absolutely.
I'm baffled at how our food system is the way that it is. We allow things into our food system that other countries are just kind of like, you do
Yeah.
what? And we don't even think anything about it. We've got kids that have ADD, and we wonder why, and we're feeding them all this stuff. Never mind the fact that we're all hopped up on
Mhm.
sugar and caffeine and all this stuff
Yeah.
all the time, and I'm guilty of it as well. But it's like, what's a person to do?
That's the $1,000,000 question. I mean,
Right.
I've got 3 kids myself, and when I look at what's in our pantry, it makes me cringe sometimes, but at the same time, uh,
Yeah.
what do we do
What do you
here?
do? Yeah.
You know, my wife, she works, I work. We don't have a personal chef
Right.
to go pick from our garden outside and
Yeah.
create, it's like
Yeah.
this is what we got to work with because we also you've got to balance everything and keep yourself sane.
Right.
And there is that balance there. How we handle it personally is we do try to give our kids something healthy every day
Yeah.
and try to call it a win.
Well, and with
And
kids, it's like you're introducing them to new concepts, right? So here's broccoli. It's like if you
yeah,
can just get them to take a bite, it's a
it's
success.
something. And I try to remember too. I was the pickiest kid ever,
Yeah.
and so I ate horribly until I was in my late 30s.
Right.
Not late 30s, early mid, whatever.
So
But there's a place for it, and you got to find balance. And one thing that people really struggle a lot with is trying to do something that is very restrictive.
right.
And one thing that we do at Connexus is we're very like we don't have a one
Regimented.
path to go down.
Yeah.
There's the people that, to me, when I read somebody that says that there's only one way to do something to get a result,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how big their business is, successful, smart. Like me personally, I do not pay attention to anything they
Right.
say.
Yeah.
Like, because that's BS.
Right.
Everybody's different. My biochemistry is different than yours. We have different DNA.
Right.
You may have a horrible response to broccoli. No, and not like think it's gross. Like your body may, like
No, I
you may
get what
have
you're
a
saying.
food
Yeah.
incident.
Yeah, I may be the broccoli is a weird one, but I may be allergic or have some sort of weird reaction.
So there's a thing, you can be insensitive to certain foods. It's not a food allergy.
Sure.
It's a real low grade thing that triggers an inflammatory response in your body,
Like a sensitivity type
that
thing.
you don't kind of notice, but then like it makes you more susceptible to getting sick because your body's like fighting off this kind of low grade inflammation that a food that technically is good causes.
Yeah.
Like there are things like that out there. So really what you got to find is just what works for people.
Yeah.
And you can give somebody the best plan in the world, but if they can't do it and it's not feasible,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not going to work for them. I actually had a conversation with the lady this morning, and as we talked about what she does for work and her job, I mean, I think intermittent fasting is setting her up for failure.
Right.
But you can find somebody that says that's the only way you can lose weight, and you can find somebody that says, no, you got to eat 6 small meals a day.
Yeah.
Well, I know multiple people that have lost a lot of weight and have transformed their lives intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of them.
I know.
I was doing the 6 meals a day thing when I was 245 pounds. But I mean, that's neither here nor there.
And there's a doctor I used to call on who's my age, and he's a guy in town and phenomenal surgeon, and he was very overweight. And I didn't see him for a couple months over COVID. And once I was still in medical device, we got back in the hospital. I walked right past him. I mean, this is a guy I'd been in surgery with 100 times.
Golly.
I didn't know him. I said, it had been about 6 months. I said, what
did you do?
What did you do? He's like, oh man. He said, I started doing keto and I started eating very small meals throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's like magic. And I know multiple people who've been like that. And so it's really finding what works for you,
right,
and doing it. And what we do is we just try to have conversations and find out like what is realistic to work in your life. And
it was interesting that one of the things, and I don't know if I've told this story before, but there was a podcast that I was listening to, and it was the guy that started Fit Body Boot Camp, Bezos Koulian, I think is his name. I'm losing it. I'm having a hard time remembering names since COVID, but Bedros Koulian, founder of Fit Body Boot Camp. And he said that when he goes into a conference that he purposely kind of like doesn't eat because he's trying to ingrain in the people that he's talking to this hunger for business and for life and for just everything that, you have, enjoyment or work or whatever. And he says he wants to physically feel that. And I thought about it and I was like, why is everybody so scared to feel hungry?
Yeah.
Most people sitting around are not going to starve if they miss a meal.
No.
And that hunger goes away after about 5 or 10 minutes. Like, I mean, you may feel hungry, but like, and what I found that is like, I can almost manage, it's almost like I can manage my blood sugar by, okay, I'm a little bit hungry. I'll eat a cracker. Mm-hmm. I don't eat a fistful of crackers and I don't eat a meal. I'll eat a cracker, and the cracker is enough to like raise your blood sugar to the point where, okay, I don't feel hungry anymore. Mm-hmm. And I just keep going on with my day. I haven't eaten enough calories to really kind of disrupt anything, but now my body is like, okay, like that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know. There's just going back to, the thought process behind wanting to get you in, it was just like, exposing people to this idea that there are things that you can do, whether it's clinical or just on your own, that can lead to a better life. That you may be doing maybe you've tried it before, maybe you've done the exercise and you've done the 6 meals. Okay, well that didn't work. Mm-hmm. Do you just give up? Or do you try something else? Do you go to a physician and talk about getting a blood panel done so that you can find out whether you're deficient in something. It might be testosterone for a guy. It might be testosterone or estrogen for a woman. Yes, ladies, testosterone. It's the predominant sex hormone in females. I am not a physician, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. So, or it may be some other obscure, thing that you're missing. And if you just make that one tweak, then you're good to go. But like, people just seem to give up.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think where I go with that with you is just like, so I guess you're playing part, care provider, but also part psychologist in the sense, or confidant, I guess, because like, people have to work through shit in order to get to that point where they're gonna keep trying stuff, to get to that point.
Well, people don't want to think about this because it's hard.
Right.
But when it comes to weight loss, a lot of it is mental.
100%.
I mean, if you don't have the right mindset to do it, I mean, anybody can go and do a 6-week challenge. Everybody loves 6-week challenge, 8-week challenge, and look, if that gets you your first step in,
and at 12 weeks, you're right back past
by
where
all
you were.
means, that's great. But like, that can't be the end goal of it at all. And I just listened to a really good podcast interview with James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits.
Okay.
Which I read the book years ago. I unfortunately forgot.
One of my sons just asked for it for Christmas, and I'm gonna read it. I have not, but I wasn't aware that it was an older book. But yeah, I'm gonna read it.
Yeah, I read it years ago. He's about to launch a new one because he's making the podcast circuit right now. And anyway, he was just on with Peter Attia, and it was a phenomenal interview because he just takes all the high points. Like, I don't have to reread the book again, so that's good.
I'll listen to the podcast.
But it's a lot about. It's not about the end goal. Let's just take weight loss, but this can be applied to anything in life. Like, I mean, for me personally, it's pretty easy to exercise and eat good because I know how I feel all the time, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
and you don't want to.
It sounds pretentious saying that, but like, I feel so damn good.
Yeah.
Like 99% of the time that.
It is true. At 50 years old, nothing tastes better than abs. Nothing tastes better than abs. Even when you're by yourself and like you take off your shirt and you're like, wow, I'm 50 years old and I have abs. I was 30 years old. I was 20 years old and did not have abs. I'm 50 years old and I have abs.
That's awesome.
And I have to work less for them than I did before. You just have to figure out what tweaks to make, and it gets you there. So I don't know. Anyway, that's my that's my soapbox, and I have a tendency. I'm very passionate about it, so I apologize if I'm.
No, man. I love hearing about it.
So you were corporate for a long time, and you are now not corporate. You are a small business owner.
Very not corporate.
Yeah, in the thick of it. And I can imagine, especially in the medical world, that is a very, you guys are dealing with, that's a different complex animal than what most of us deal with. And so how have you found that? How has that been? What lessons have you learned that maybe somebody that's coming behind you, it's like, oh, well, I guess I should pay attention for that kind of thing?
Business is hard.
Yes.
As I spent a few years trying to convince myself to make the move, I tried 10 different side hustles, found out I'm not a side hustle guy.
Yeah.
I think some people do really well with it, but some people need to go all in on something.
I'd argue everybody does, but the side hustle is always going to stay a side hustle if it's a side hustle.
Yeah. And after my, I don't know how many failed side hustles I tried, I've always wanted my own business, and maybe it was a midlife crisis around 40. It was like, am I going to do this, or am I going to be that rep who's in his mid 50s, miserable? I can't tell you, when I started medical device sales, how many older reps that were in their 50s and 60s absolutely hated it. And I had the same conversation with a lot of them. It's like, why do you do it? He's like, what else am I going to do?
Money's really good. Yeah.
They're like, it's the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like, they pay me just good enough to keep you there and
Yeah.
keep you comfortable. But I mean, there's a handful of reps that do really, really, really
Right.
well, but most of it is just, it's a nice, comfortable
Yeah.
living, which I mean, it was for me too. And that's hard to leave. But I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And everything just kind of aligned with William, and his intention was never to leave
Practice.
being a surgeon,
Yeah.
but he's got some passion around longevity health, and there's not anybody really filling that need. And if there is, nobody knows about it. And I mean, people still
Yeah.
don't know about us. I mean, friends of mine that know what I do still are like,
Right.
What do y'all do again?"
Yeah.
Like, I told you 4 times, man.
Yeah.
But it's tough being a small business, getting your message out in the world, and
It is absolutely. And I tell a story that I'll never forget that as a marketing company, I was on the board for the Eastern Shore Chamber, and the then president of the Eastern Shore Chamber sent out an RFP to another agency, and he didn't send it to me. And I asked him afterwards, and I'm not bashing him for this. This is my own issue. I asked him, I said, why didn't you send it to me? Like, I would have really wanted to have responded to that. And he said, I didn't know that you did that. I was on the board, and this guy did not know what I did. Now, there's part of it, like the president of the chamber should probably know what the board members do.
right.
But there's also part of it of, well, then I should probably have done a better job of educating him and the general public of what we do here at Bluefish.
Yeah.
And so from that point, I made it my life's mission to just, do everything that I possibly could to tell people what it is that we do. I don't care whether I would necessarily win the business, but if I don't at least hear about it, then I have no chance at winning that business.
Yeah.
And so, it's a very hard thing, but I think as business owners, we don't realize how much we have to be the hype guy for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's a very uncomfortable place to be, but man, the more you can accept that that's who you have to be, then, because everybody around you is going to be like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, this is weird. And it's just like, yeah, you don't understand. I'm a business owner. I have to tell people what I do. Otherwise, my family stops eating.
Dude, what you just said
Yeah.
has been like my biggest epiphany over the last 2 or 3 months, because I don't
Yeah.
like social media.
Yeah.
I never have. I've never been active in it. Like, I have been very fortunate to be a part of a couple of business mentorship groups. I mean, as the mentee, obviously I've got,
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's coming to me for business advice right now.
You say that now, give it a couple of
Well,
months.
we're new,
Yeah.
and we've done some great things and that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
And we screw up 100 times a day. I mean, I've
every
learned
business does. Yeah.
so much. It's unbelievable. One of the biggest takeaways I've had from people, they're like, you've got to get your message out there. And I don't know what it was. It hit me sometime in the last month or two, and it goes against everything that I feel, but I've almost been selfish by not doing that, because when I think about, like, one of the things that we do in our weekly meetings with my team, which is, I have got the best team in the world. And I've got 3 employees, and I could not ask for 3 better ones. And one of the things we do, though, is we just talk about, like, hey, which one of our clients has had something really great happen with them? And when you see these stories just start piling up of it, not like, oh, well, so-and-so lost 30 pounds.
You guys are changing
That's not it.
lives.
It's so-and-so that has PCOS, polycystic ovarian something syndrome.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, it's something women get. It makes it real hard to get pregnant. And a whole lot of other issues. But she lost 40 pounds and was able to
have a baby,
actually get pregnant,
Gosh.
And people that are getting off of, like, all these kinds of medications, and like they walk through the door almost like floating. They're so happy and have so much more energy and are feeling better. And we had one couple that, like, the intimacy in the relationship. So my nurse, I don't talk with any of the women about that, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I
My
get.
nurse, Becky, she is like just one of people just gravitate to her and love, and she becomes best friends with these people. And you know,
Yeah.
she's telling me like their marriage is like totally different and restored because the wife started losing weight. She got more confidence in her. It
Yeah.
got the husband to start changing some stuff. He dropped a much, and like
Yeah.
it's like this couple in their 50s who are like newlyweds again. You know, like that's the kind of stuff. And it's like, well, if I
Why
don't get that message out there,
Yeah.
then there are certain people that aren't going to hear that, you know, and even if it's just one person that hears it, but all I see is I go to post something or take a video of myself saying something, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
like you sound like an idiot.
The internal voice of a business owner is a very, very strong, thing. I mean, it tells us that we're idiots at times. It tells us that we're the most brilliant people on the planet at times. It tells us that we're, ugly and should never be seen by the public at times and have a face for radio. And then it tells us that we're the most gorgeous people on the planet at times. I mean, like it is a really weird thing. But what I would say to you is the same thing that any guy that coaches, salespeople would say, the company that you work for in medical sales thought enough of their product to go out and tell people about that product, and they paid you handsomely to do it. And so, most businesses have a choice. They either, if they're a small business, oftentimes it's the owner that has to be that cheerleader, or they pay somebody like us to go out, and do it for them. But in the reality, like somebody has to be that person because if you like, our tagline is, we help businesses overcome obscurity and connect with their audiences. And the truth is, if you are not telling people, then you're not, especially you, man, like you're like impacting people's lives. And here's a little known secret, like we had, do you know Braxton Gilbert? He's a local trainer. The guy's like, man, if he's, Braxton, I'm really sorry if you listen to this, but if he's 25, like, I mean, he's not 30.
Okay.
And he's been a business owner since I think he was like 14. He's
Wow.
been a trainer since he was 14. And he knows his stuff. Like, this is not some BS guy that just got a certificate. Like, he's trained hundreds of people and had lots of weight loss. He gets that most of it's up here, right? And we were talking the other night because he and his girlfriend came over for dinner. And I said, if there was one thing that could get me to quit Bluefish, I would quit and in a heartbeat go and do what you do. And he was just like, and you would be fucking good at it. And I was like, yeah, because there's something about when you understand that most of it's up here and that you just have to change people's way of perceiving things or, thinking, then, it becomes a little bit easier at least, I mean, I'd like to think, but I also like to think that, there's no more powerful, like what we do here is not just advertising. I'm here impacting people's lives by increasing their business and helping them become more successful. That is if I was to say what our purpose is, it's to impact the business community here in Mobile in such a way that the business community is more successful. That's why we do this podcast. That's why I do Marketing Madness, which is a show on Bluefish. And now I'm ranting, but at the same time, like that's our purpose. And so everything that I do is kind of driven with that idea of helping people. And you obviously went into this because of that same reason. You didn't see a pile of cash at the end of the rainbow and decide to quit your job.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just encourage you because I think what you have to say is, some amazing stuff. How do you like to unwind?
Exercise. Okay.
That was great.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yes. But you know what? That's true. Exercise is a great way to unwind. You get that bad energy out. You get to listen to whatever you want to. Nobody's bothering you. Like, come on now. But go ahead and give me the other answer too.
The other answer is to sit my butt on a beach and do nothing. Like not go on a cruise and go on zipline excursions. Like we like to go to an island where we don't see anybody else, my wife and I, and sit on the beach and read and drink beer and listen to Jimmy Buffett and Bob Marley.
Yeah. There's something very exciting about not having any expectations on yourself, right? So when you go to a beach and you're just sitting there,
that's it.
Yeah. We recently went away and I was like, man, it's nice because the food wasn't great, but it was just nice being in a different location because there's no expectations of clients. There's no
Yeah.
expectations of kids. I don't have to wash any dishes. Don't go to the grocery store. Don't, none of that stuff. It's nice.
Yeah.
So, all right. You ready for some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
What's your favorite type of music?
Golly. I'm one of those annoying people. I like everything, but
What's your favorite artist?
90s
then?
country,
90s country.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite type of food?
Italian,
Favorite restaurant in Lower Alabama?
Noble South.
Good choice. Favorite city outside of Mobile?
Favorite city outside. Say Greenville, South Carolina.
I've not been there. That's interesting. City you want to travel to but have not yet had a chance to visit?
Anywhere?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Paris because one of my kids wants to go to Paris so bad. And
Got to see that Eiffel Tower.
my list of cities I want to see is so damn long. I can't even
Yeah, I like
pick one. So I'm going to pick that one.
I like to travel too. So, what comes to mind when I say guilty pleasure?
Pizza.
Dogs, cats, or none of the above?
I mean, dogs over cats, but we don't have either.
Okay. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Braveheart.
Which Braveheart?
Braveheart. Yeah, movie. TV show. Now, if we're doing TV, The Sopranos is
Okay.
like for me
going
best
back.
ever.
Yeah. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Favorite color?
Blue.
And favorite cereal?
Fruity Pebbles.
I don't know why, but the cereal one gets me. I don't know. It's just at some point in time, I'm going to go back and after asking like a whole series of people this, I'm going to go back and analyze like what cereal people chose and like that person and why that makes sense. That's just me. So, all right. So into the rapid fire, but then back in just normal questions. What are you most thankful for?
Definitely my family. And I was trying to see if there was something, because I'm sure a lot of people say that, but
Yeah,
I would be lying if I said it was anything
There's
else.
no right or wrong answer to that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
my wife and my children.
That's very cool. And how can people find you?
They can find us at theconnexusclinic.com, at dexafitfairhope.com, and we've got all the social media
Facebook,
pages.
Instagram.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, all of those.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. To wrap up, any final thoughts or comments you'd like to share?
No, man, I appreciate the opportunity to just help. I love talking about this in general with anybody, but also just to help spread the word about what we do. And, yes, I do own a business that I want people to come to, but people seriously can have life-changing things happen when they come see us. And not just us, there's a lot of other people in the healthcare community and the fitness community that do incredible things in Mobile and Baldwin County.
100%.
And we are, I'm proud just to be a part of that. And I tell other gym owners all the time, so we've got some equipment in Fairhope that nobody has within like 5 or 6 hours of here.
Oh, wow.
So we've got a DEXA scanner.
And you haven't mentioned that?
Well,
tell us what equipment you have.
You said we could edit this, so we were definitely. It just hadn't come up yet. So,
what kind of stuff you got?
We've got a DEXA scanner, which there's a ton of DEXA scanners around here, but they're all just used to measure bone density. So you can find them in a hospital. That's how people have been diagnosing osteoporosis
for the longest time,
forever.
Yeah.
There's a separate software with a DEXA scanner where you can measure full body composition.
Oh, cool.
And it's the gold standard to find that. So every university, every big research facility in the world uses a DEXA scanner. Peter Attia, every one of his patients.
So body fat percentage versus muscle mass and stuff like that.
Yeah, so body fat, muscle mass, visceral fat, which is very, very important. There's
Yeah.
only 2 ways to measure visceral fat that's not just taking a wild guess with a formula,
Yeah.
and that's an MRI, which is really expensive.
Yeah.
So I mean, nobody does that around here,
No, no.
or a DEXA scanner.
Yeah.
So the visceral fat, a lot of people don't know about. That is the bad fat that gets packed in around your
Or your belly.
organs,
Yeah.
and tons and tons of inflammation come
Yeah.
from visceral fat. Inflammation leads to like pretty much every bad thing that
So
happens
I
in
feel
your
like we're
body,
getting
health-wise.
I feel like we're getting started again, and I want to interject this too. That most of the studies that are coming out now, that when it comes to heart disease and things like that, that it's the inflammation that we need to be concerned about, and not cholesterol or some of these other things. And I'm again not a doctor. I stayed at a Holiday Inn, but when I started reading about some of these studies where they're talking about the inflammation is what causes the cracks in the veins that the cholesterol gets stuck in. So therefore, don't worry about the symptom or the symptom of the cholesterol getting stuck. Worry more about the symptom of the artery having fissures in it and getting, So anyway, it's, stuff like that. But
So there's just a super high correlation of high levels of visceral fat and all-cause mortality. All of
100%.
all of the chronic lifestyle diseases, which I think one of the big things that healthcare really does wrong, like just overall messaging, is people not realizing like all this heart disease stuff. Yes, there are some genetic predispositions. I'm not discounting that. The majority of it is preventable because we eat like crap and we don't move enough.
Yeah.
And so most of our business is using these weight loss shots.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. Now Zepbound is Mounjaro, just with the weight loss designation. And I think they're really doing a disservice to people by painting the picture that obesity is a disease that you can't do anything about, that just happens to you. So
Yeah, 100%.
now look, skinny guy saying that, I totally get it. There are definitely things that make some people more predisposed to it, for sure. But what it's doing for a lot of people is just further ingraining that you can just let a medication fix all your problems.
Yeah.
And what we do differently that not many people, at least around here, are doing, the message kind of nationally is finally picking up some steam. You're going to see an epidemic of people in a couple of years that lost a ton of weight on these shots and are that way more than when they started and are worse off health-wise.
Because they're dependent on the shots and don't make the lifestyle changes that are necessary in order to stay where they're at when they get there.
That's it. This shot.
It's not the magic pill or the magic shot. It's just a way of getting there, whether it's testosterone or whether it's that or whether it's weight loss or I'm sorry, not weight loss, but eating habits or intermittent fasting. Yeah, I get it.
It's a tool, and the message we give to all of our patients and the ones that do the best on it, and not everybody does, but we can only tell people, you can lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
But if you take this shot and you use it as a tool that is unbelievably powerful and helpful, and say you're on it for 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, you start from day one developing the habits that you're going to need to keep that off the whole time. So once you get off of it, they're there.
Yeah.
Because your
It's
hunger
going to take that long to undo all the bad habits.
your hunger is going to come back, because that's what the shots do. They make you
Suppress the hunger.
They do a bunch of other stuff, but I mean, that's why it works. People eat a lot less on it because they're not hungry. Bad snacking habits, even it makes a lot of people that drink a good bit just lose the desire to drink. Not a bad thing at all.
No, not at all.
All that stuff's coming back because you've got this thing that is artificially taking away something that's very tough. So what we try to change the mindset with people, and our people that do the best at it, say, okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm not taking the shot now.
Yeah.
I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start eating right. And at the same time, we get people who are like you that are exercising like crazy and still not seeing weight loss.
Yeah.
And there's something else going on there. And so, I mean, that's a real thing too. But for, I would say 90% of the people, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what we really do. We help coach people through that, try to make them understand what we're trying to do. Like, I tell people, I don't care what the weight on the scale says. Like, it is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because if you lose 40 pounds and 25 of it is lean mass, like,
Oh, yeah. Then you just really screwed yourself.
yeah, like I'm not happy with that at all. And so we measure that with people.
Very good.
We've got a full body composition analyzer.
Pause for just a second. For those of you that don't understand what he's saying, lean mass is lean muscle mass.
Yes, sorry.
Versus fat mass burns more calories at resting metabolism. They talk about a resting metabolism. So if you have more muscle mass, you're going to burn more calories just sitting here versus somebody that's has less muscle mass.
Correct.
And so I'm sorry, just some people aren't.
Yeah, no, it's that's a blind spot of mine because we talk about it all the time.
I'm here to decipher.
Yeah. So where we get really excited, I'll just tell you a story of one lady that she works out with us over in Fairhope, and I'll tell you about what we're doing over there because nobody does anything like it around here. So first 2 months she's working out with us. She hadn't worked out in years. You can see on her face, her energy levels are increasing. She feels a lot better.
Yeah.
But she's frustrated because she's not seeing the number on the scale move. I'm like, well, how are you feeling? She's like, well, I feel a lot better. I'm like, okay, well, why do you care?
Yeah.
She's like, because I'm a woman and I want to see the number on the scale drop.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this, like, don't worry about that. Like, let's get the process in place, let it take care of herself. We do a DEXA scan, follow up 3 months later after working out.
Yeah, yeah.
She's lost 14 pounds of actual fat.
Nice.
She's gained 5 pounds of muscle. So on the scale, she's only lost 9 pounds in 3 months.
But she's changed.
She looks like she's lost 30.
Yeah.
And she is like bouncing through the door. She is so energetic. And I mean,
Her clothes fit better.
This is a woman like on the cusp of menopause. Her hormones are going crazy.
Yeah.
She's almost 50. And all it was is, and she did everything right. Like she started paying attention to what she was eating. So part of what we do also in Fairhope, not just the DEXA scanner, we've got a metabolic cart there so we can get an accurate RMR, so your resting metabolic rate, show how many calories you burn at rest. So at the very beginning, you talked about trying to dial in your calories.
Yeah.
Like,
no, there's no way.
so that's a number. Yeah, there's all these formulas online you can Google. Like for me, like what's a 5'10", 165 pound, 42-year-old white guy? I burn X number of calories a day.
Which is, they're guessing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You might get it right, but until you breathe into a tube for 20 minutes and let the machine analyze the ratio of oxygen and carbon dioxide, you don't know.
So that's how it tells.
So this takes the guesswork out of that. So if you're like, okay, this scenario we see all the time is women come in, and I'm not picking on women, they're just...
Yeah, predominantly.
I meet very few men who chronically diet.
Right.
So it's usually women, they're frustrated because they're starving themselves, they're working out 2 hours a day in the gym, and they're not losing weight.
Yeah.
And it's because they've been dieting so long and been in such a big calorie deficit, their body's in starvation mode.
Yeah.
Like before the last, 100 years, when, and maybe not even that long, that we just had food available for us whenever.
Right.
Like if you didn't give your body what it needs, it didn't know when it was eating again.
Yeah.
So it'd store that energy up. And so it actually slows their metabolism down. Then they exercise too much, which keeps their cortisol levels raised abnormally high, which that kicks off a whole
stress hormone for the
stress hormone, which the end result of that, and look, I don't understand all the chemical reactions that happen with that.
Causes you to store weight or fat.
That is the end result of having cortisol.
Yeah. Peter Attia would be able to tell us what,
Yes. That's one of the things. Like I know the start point and I know the end point.
I'm the same way.
Everything
I was
in between.
just poking because we were talking about the inner workings of it.
So That's a real thing with that. The other testing modality we have for metabolism is the VO2 max test.
Okay. I've never had, may have to talk after this and come over and see what you guys have going on, because I've never had a resting heart rate or a resting metabolism test or a VO2 max, done.
So VO2 max test is the number one predictor of longevity. That is the snapshot to tell you how well your cardiovascular system is working.
For sure.
And so, what that does is that tells you how your body utilizes oxygen, how efficiently. What it can also tell you, and this is what most of the people that come to us for, is it pertains to weight loss, is it gives you the heart rate that your body is using fat most efficiently for energy.
Because they tell you kind of a range, but you
tell you a range, again, but that's different for everybody. Yeah. And I mean, that goes back to your genetics that makes that different. So I had a guy who came in, he's 54, 55, started running a year ago, had not done anything in years, big old belly, dropped 30 pounds easily, because it pisses women off, but that's what happens to men when they start doing
muscle mass.
When they start doing something when they hadn't done anything forever.
Yeah.
He quickly hit that plateau once he got rid of like just the kind of crap additional weight.
Yeah.
Anyway, for a year couldn't get it off. He does that test and finds out that his body is burning fat at 92 beats per minute. But like once he gets to like 110, it's all carbs. So once he starts running at any kind of pace,
92 beats a minute is like nothing.
It's nothing. And so he's already like switched over into burning carbs. So he's not like eating into those fat stores. Now, he also, it took about 6 months for me to be able to convince him, and finally listen, that you got to lift weights too.
Yeah.
You have to build muscle. Like if you're just doing cardio to lose weight, it ain't gonna work.
I can't remember the last time I did cardio.
Yeah. It's important for cardiovascular health. I mean, all exercise has its role and is important.
Yeah, no, I just get my cardio in different ways. You know what I mean? Like but I'm not going to get on a treadmill and go running, or go, get on a bike and, ride for 20 minutes or something like that. It just doesn't. So, the way, again, different strokes for different folks, but when, I go into weightlift, I find that most of the time guys go in and it's like, oh, I'm going to lift a heavy weight, and then I wait 5 minutes, and then I'm going to lift a heavy weight and I'm going to wait 5 minutes. Well, if you go in, lower the weight a little bit and make it a minute instead, well, your heart rate gets elevated and never really, comes back down to a resting heart rate. You keep it kind of elevated. And I find that has worked well for me, but also just, man, when I'm out in the yard working, which is often, or when I'm, whatever, like I'm going.
Yeah.
Like I'm pushing myself, and, I don't know. I haven't had to do any like regimented cardio. I used to do that stuff, and it just like, it burns my brain now to think about spending an hour and a half, 2 hours doing a bike ride or something like that. Like,
you got to do what you enjoy, or you're not going to stick with it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And shameless plug for Dexafit and Fairhope here.
Yeah.
What we found with hundreds of people coming through doing the medical weight loss with this Mobile, and we're harping on them, saying you've got to do resistance training if you want to get the most out of this. And it's not an expensive treatment.
Right.
I mean, these people are spending good money on these. So like, why wouldn't you want
to get
everything you could out of it?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that have very either real or perceived barriers to exercise.
Interesting.
And this was something I didn't realize, because I played sports and football in high school. I've been lifting weights since I was 15 years old, and actually enjoy it. But there's a lot of people that do not enjoy the traditional gym environment.
I can understand that. Yeah.
It's intimidating, self-conscious, not sure what to do, And so we thought, what can we do to remove any possible barrier for that? And so William and I just started finding these really cool resistance training machines that give you unbelievably fast but effective workouts.
Okay.
So what's cool about this is William's one of the smartest people I know. Like, the guy loves medical studies, all that stuff. And so how we would work this is I would go find the machines, I would get all the scientific data, send it to him and say, hey, like run this through your
Verify,
medical brain. You know.
Yeah.
And there were several things that I sent him. He was like, man, the science a little iffy. But the stuff that we got was like, dude, this is legit. This is awesome.
Interesting.
And so we've built a smart gym so people that either don't have time to exercise or just hate it but know they need to do it and just need to come get in and get out, they can come. The longest workout we have is 21 minutes on a machine, and we can prove with our DEXA scanner that it's going to give you the benefit of spending 2, 3, 4 hours a week in the gym.
Yeah.
What ends up happening after a couple of months is people start feeling so damn good that we can't get them out in 20 minutes. Like now they're coming in and they're wanting to do more.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really cool to see.
No, it is interesting because I think what happens with most people is that, you know, that they start exercising and it feels really bad. Everybody knows, I mean, well, a lot of people know this, that you start exercising, it feels really bad for a little bit. And then, you know, at some point in time, your body gets it and you start, you know, you also, you're making some changes too, but, and then it clicks and then it's like, man, you crave it. And when you can't go, like I've been nursing a shoulder injury for a while now, and I've really, you know, I need to get, you know, something done, some stem cells or something, but it's bugging me because I can't go to the gym. Like when you can't use your shoulder, you know, you can't press, you can't pull. I can't even really like hold myself in a plank position, you know. So, you know, I mean, I'm still able to move a little bit, but there are certain spots where it's like it really hurts and stuff. And so, but you know, like I'm working around it in some other ways. But yeah, it's amazing to me how getting hurt like that can like kind of take you out of a rhythm. And now I'm just kind of like, man, I just really want to get in the gym, you know, like, but I can't. But,
Dude, I've got something really good for you.
Well, let's talk. I do. You had a couple of thoughts there. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's probably all over the map. Explaining all that.
Yeah, we could go on for a couple more hours, like we talked about,
Yeah.
you know, earlier on. I know that I want to be cognizant of your time. I know you got to get back, but I do appreciate your willingness to sit with us and share your journey as a business owner and entrepreneur. It's been, you know, I've really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day because between starting a new business and, I mean, it's just totally new for me.
And then the passion that you have for helping people too.
So it's been fun. I enjoy it and hope to help a lot more people, not just on both sides of the bay. I mean, we got people driving in from Birmingham and New Orleans and all over to do this testing because just nobody's got it around here.
Wow.
So it's been fun.